each project, if someone gets a grant from NIH, like $4 million, they start building an app and all these things from scratch. The project ends, the platform dies.
You might be the first person I've spoken to in academia that's not just adopting closed loop platforms, but like using agents.
Why it's just a loop? Because it's like a navigation, like your car navigation. Every turn tells you like turn right. So you need a continuous navigation towards your goal. And a closed loop system can only offer that. It's not a one-time thing that you go to a doctor's office and they print like 10 pages or 15 pages of instructions what to do, what not to do.
Amir, thanks so much for hopping on the Health Tech to Care podcast today. I'm really excited to speak to you. Thanks for making some time.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Of course, I always love to share a little bit about our story, both in academia and industry, with folks.
Yeah, let's get right into it. I know you wear like several hats as like a professor at UC Irvine. You're a digital health researcher yourself, and you're now a co-founder of integrated AI systems, which includes Centralive and openCHA. What like pulled you into the intersection of healthcare and tech, and how did that lead to building these two products?
Well, that's a great question and a long story. By training, I'm a computer scientist, and um more than 10 years ago, it's about 15 years ago, I was working primarily on designing efficient IoT, Internet of Things sensors, like how to make them more resilient, more energy efficient, and all these things. And um, I noticed that this IoT is kind of has a great application in the healthcare domain. So, especially in the form of wearable devices and in smart homes and all these things. So, and I always wanted to pick an application domain because if you really want to make an impact, it's important to like focus on some domain because IoT devices can be used for everything, like from
Right.
smart manufacturing all the way to healthcare to autonomous drivers and so on. So I and because by heart I was always kind of interested also in the field of healthcare. I started collaborating with a few colleagues, mostly in the nursing school, because
Mm,
nurses are the closest to the patients, and in the if you look at also the amount of time a patient spends in a healthcare system in general, like in regarding healthcare, the majority of time is with the nurses than other clinicians. So they generate the majority of the data, like in healthcare, generated by nurses. So they know everything much more close way. So
yeah, they
we
spend a lot
started.
of time with them. Yeah.
So was that
No, they spend a lot of time. Like when you're a patient, you spend a lot of time with the nurse. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly? And so we started with a few projects. The first project was more like how we can better help pregnant mothers, especially those who are at risk, helping them be more physically active, helping them like manage their stress, and how we can leverage wearables and for continuous monitoring of these pregnant mothers for like not a day or week, but in fact for almost a year. So
Hmm.
that's more or less like from IoT to a little bit of collaboration with nurses, and then that was expanded with basically every field in healthcare, from mental health, medicine, sports medicine, just you name it, because there's a lot of gaps, and unfortunately, healthcare is really behind in adopting technology, as we all know. That's why there are a lot of real uh, important problems, and so you don't need to, make up problems. There are a lot of problems that you really need
Right.
to kind of dive in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a fascinating background, like how you went from computer science to developing and designing IoT sensors and then working with nurses. I mean,
Yeah.
you got, I'm sure you, and you being a professor, I'm sure too, are exposed to what the innovation that's being researched on in the academia side, and now you went and also developed Centralive while you were at UC Irvine, right? So,
Yeah.
what problems did you and your research teams like keep running into that led you to productize Centralive and then spin it out for broader use in the market?
Just mentioned, for example, this project about maternity care. In fact, we received grants, big grants for to run this study to design something, and uh, we noticed that we are reinventing the wheel a lot in the healthcare, especially research in the healthcare domain. I believe, and also in uh, mm, after research in implementation. And
Mm,
regardless of what kind of population you have in mind, if you're trying to build what we call living labs, which means that you're collecting data and researching participants in their everyday in everyday settings, in real world settings, you really need a lot of some key components or key I would say items. One, you need access somehow to a different, or you need to ingest data from longitudinal data from devices. It can be wearable devices, it can be portable devices, it can be smart home, all those things, right? Like a smart mattress or something like that. So
mm,
data capture, remote data capture, objectively is critical. Subjectively, you want to also be connected closely to the participants, maybe sending a few very quick questions every now and then. In psychology, they call it EMAs, or ecological momentary assessments. So you,
mm,
rather than sending them like long questionnaires of 20, 30 questions or few pages, like 5-second questions, like how do you feel right now, blah. So you really want to be in touch, because we're talking about, as I said, like in that maternity care problem, we collected about 10 months of data every 50 millisecond. Just imagine 50 millisecond data from a pregnant mother for 10 months, and how much data. And I'll later maybe share with you that how we use that data to kind of predict preterm birth in pregnant
mm,
mothers, because now we had a lot of. But going back to those components, the A, objective data collection; B, subjective self-reported outcomes; C, you also need kind of an infrastructure to what we call it, like deliver digital interventions, like design and deliver, like digital therapeutics. And a lot of these actually in the back end and the backbone are, regardless of their population or design, are the same. But each
mm,
project, someone gets a grant from NIH, like $4 million. They start building an app and all these things from scratch. The project ends, the platform dies. Then the next person gets funded. Then again, they will start build. So a lot of reinventing the wheel, a lot of time, and I would say even taxpayer money in this scenario is being wasted on the development side, not the research side. Even though that
mhm,
money is supposed to go, and that's standard, of unfortunately. But we observed that at our center. We noticed, we can just turn all these common components into a service, and like a Lego style, right, in modular way. And if there's a new like application, like we can just simply build it on top of that, right, and just add those pieces of Lego and reuse everything else. This is how also cloud computing platforms like AWS, for example, works. In fact, Centralive runs on AWS, so we outsource all of those cloud computing
mm.
needs to AWS. So this way, all this technology, maintenance, security, privacy, all those things are kind of managed by Centralive. And now researchers, or those who wanna, it doesn't need to be researchers. It can be like a startup company who want to like do rapid prototyping, or a therapist who wants to like modernize her practice. They can
Mm.
quickly build without any coding kind of experiences their solution, integrate devices, and just go ahead and run the study.
Very
Cool.
interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating how you like understood that, like working in academia, like running these research like studies for with living labs, you call them, like
Yeah.
collecting data from participants. You like one example you gave is pregnant mothers, and you came to this conclusion that, and I think it's true for a lot of companies out there, like platforms, like they die every time a grant is over. But it's I like this Lego analogy. Like it's almost like there are common components that a lot of research teams tackle, and so it sounds like you've built this like closed loop platform for research teams with Centralive. Now what do you think like makes it different from other like study platforms out there, and how does it simplify things like real time like sensing? Like I know you talked about the EMAs instead of questionnaires, but like things like analytics, intervention, like what makes it different, and how do you simplify those things that are important to research teams, and startups alike, like you just said.
Exactly. You know, of course, juggling too many platforms and kind of having an orchestration layer where you take care of the interoperability is not uh, something that we did for the first time. Of course, this not even for research, but also in practice, that has been always the problem. Where we have different vendors and there are different silos
Mm,
and ecosystem. What makes to me, and that's why even, in fact, even we made that for our own research, was that closed loop thing that you mentioned. And closed loop is a simple concept. Like in a kind of any smart system, you usually have a loop of what I call like sensing, sense making, and action. Okay, and again, you sense make. That's usually a closed loop system. Even your, let's say, your car's cruise control, it
mm,
senses the speed, all those things, make a decision to accelerate or brake, and then it does it again and again and again for.
mm,
So that's a closed loop system, sensing and real time or semi real time, making decision. And this is critical for many different reasons. A, for personalization in healthcare, because you don't want to burden your users. You don't want to send them, for example, nudges of go and take this blood pressure medication if they don't really need it at that moment, or
mm,
so you and or sending educational materials on every day's previous scheduling. If
yeah.
what if they're already doing good today? Do you want to still like kind of over nudge them and so on? So that's one thing. A closed loop system can sense. Now, the data coming from a sensor is used in real time for decision making to trigger something on your phone.
Mm,
And maybe the data is captured by the sensor, but maybe the intervention is sent by your phone. But they all are seamlessly part of a loop. And imagine you can also bring more things to this loop. And imagine even the next level where this openCHA also comes to the picture. All of these are all even connected to your personalized chatbot. So when you go there, rather than asking ChatGPT, how can someone improve their deep sleep quality,
right.
or what kind of food do I need to eat to improve my deep sleep like duration, something like that, right? This is actually what when you're asking this is a personal question. You're asking what can I eat, right? But the
Mm,
chatbot will give you generic population level advice
mm,
because it doesn't know you, and it's not closed loop because it's not connected to your sensing, or even I would argue very modern solutions like, for example, in mental health we have applications like Headspace, or many other successful applications that also I'm supporting them. I love them. Don't
mm,
get me wrong, but in my opinion they're also not closed loop. If you really want to make closed loop, you can perhaps augment that by maybe a wearable and Headspace coach or whatever, Calm, it doesn't matter which app, let's say your digital mental health coach
right.
would know you better and can give you suggestions in a closed loop way every day. And why is just a loop? Because it's like a navigation, like your car navigation. At every step, at every turn, it tells you like turn right and then turn left. So you need a continuous navigation towards your goal. And a
Mm,
closed loop system can only offer that. It's not a one-time thing that you go to a doctor's office and they print like 10 pages or 15 pages of instructions
right.
what to do, what not to do, and they hand it over to you. This is not a loop. This is a one-time action. We need
Hmm.
a continuous, perpetual coaching.
Yeah.
That's
I,
close.
that's a great analogy with the cruise control. I think that'll be a relatable one to a lot of folks in the audience. But what I'm hearing is that your guys' differentiator with Centralive is the fact that it is closed loop, and like you said, interventions like are it goes from like sensing something and then going to actually the point of like intervening with the
Yes,
patient or participant in the study, based on
exactly.
triggers. So
And for example,
very,
like if I want to add in here, we can say send this, uh, I don't know, mindfulness or mindful breathing exercise only when the watch says, for example, the resting heart rate is beyond this number. So, and you can do it in Centralive without any coding. You can just use the graphical user interface, write in your studio, design your intervention, add pictures, videos, and put it on a condition. Like so that trigger it only when these events are or these conditions are met, which is like a sensor, like Aura device, or for example, your smartwatch says this. So you
Hmm.
couple your sensor and your actuation without any coding in a matter of, I would say, minutes, not hours. And if you want to do it custom, it takes months, if not a year, 1 or 2 years. And also, it's super expensive because you need to, again, as I said, reinventing the wheel from scratch. For us, it's just configuring the platform to do what you need to do. So
Hmm.
that's the value.
Very interesting. You might be the first person I've spoken to in academia that's not just adopting closed loop platforms, but like using agents, you know? And I know we'll get to that in a second. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, like, as someone who's, spent a lot of your career in academia and research, and you probably work with other um, academic institutions as well. Like, how does Centralive break through to the actual like study teams themselves? Because don't they all, like, a lot of them rely on like grants to like fund work. So how does like a study team that's watching this and like listening end up adopting something like Centralive? What does that like adoption path look like? Knowing that a lot of it is grant driven, like you explained earlier.
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, Currently, Central used to be just an academic platform at our university. We first built it for ourselves and our collaborators and our center. We have a center at UC Irvine called Institute for Future Health. We
Mm,
have more than 55 faculty members across different schools part of our center. And so it was first just a service to our own closed community. But we noticed that there is a need from outside university. Many others have this same pains and they struggle with the same issues. So we turned this into a product. And now the way we work with, of course, still the majority of our clients are research labs, either in academia or other R&D places globally. So how we work, like as you mentioned, sometimes they already have a grant, and as part of that grant, they kind of budget for. Of course, they always budget, even over budget, for a lot of custom developments and so on and so forth. So
mm,
what we do is we kind of offer them that kind of service, and which can save some of their funding for development, but also some of the funding for research coordinators, because now a lot of automation is going there. For example, sending reminders automatically, sending, like,
mm.
making sure the devices are actually being used and being charged automatically. All those things are now in the dashboard that can save a lot of just manual coordination tasks. So that's also another. So the way is that works, that we have usually two models right now. Some research units or labs who already have a grant, they kind of partner with us and mm, start using the platform. It's a subscription based platform, annual
Mm.
subscription. And sometimes PIs or those researchers don't have even grants at the moment. And we also have this risk sharing model. I'm a researcher and a professor and fully understand this chicken and egg problem. So,
Yeah.
uh, and the way we also work with them, like we spend a lot of time, understanding the study, even supporting the kind of grant, uh, you know, providing support letters, even write up strategies, about in the grants that they can, also about the validation of our platform, previous grants in which so we kind of support them also to go for that grant to be more successful. And of course, if the grant gets funded, we hopefully will start working together. And if it's not, it's a risk sharing model. So there is no commitment, just working together. So that's another model. So if anyone hearing that want to go for a grant, please or reach out to me or our website, submit a request. Would be happy to just talk and see how we can help.
I see. That's interesting. I mean, it is truly sometimes like a chicken or an egg, but situation. But like, it's what I'm hearing is it's not necessary to have grant funding to take advantage of something like Centralive. You know, like you
Exactly.
do have risk sharing models. Like if you already have a grant, it's really interesting. Like you said, like this could be a cost saving mechanism. Like you may not need to like go hire additional research coordinators because you can automate some of that through the platform. You know, and
Exactly.
with that in mind, I'd love to dig a little deeper into the agent piece of it, because you know there's a boom, as we all know, not just AI that's taken over the last few years, but now like you know agentic AI and AI agents themselves. So you've also developed another product called openCHA, which is an open source product, from what I understand, for conversational health agents. What inspired that product specifically, and how are you seeing it support like workflows and RPM companies, and then even like decentralized trial work in your clinical research space? You know?
Yes, openCHA came out of our center first just as a pure research problem and a project. In fact, it was 2023. At that time, even agentic AI wasn't that much booming. Still, LLM were like very hot. So I would say 2024 was more of the year of agentic AI and so on. But that year, we started building some I mean some solutions for health, or some healthcare chatbots, if you will. And as usual, of course, we started just using LLMs. Like that time, GPT 3.5 chat was more like the popular. Even GPT-4 was not available. But anyway,
Mm,
we noticed that there are very fundamental problems with LLMs, and especially if you want to just directly going, if you want to use it in the healthcare domain. Healthcare is a totally different setting with all its own regulations and evidence and personalization, all those things. So, and we are also an AI lab, so we always had this background of building intelligent systems, and agents are not something new in AI. You look at textbook in like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there always have been discussion about agents.
right.
But here the conversational health agents was the fact that we wanted to build an architecture, something that a can can help us provide conversations that are grounded in knowledge and evidence. So, and there are a lot of sources of curated knowledge in healthcare. Healthcare is, just imagine even a simple textbook that
Mm,
an MD student needs or a nurse. These are all sources of knowledge, or big knowledge graphs by, for example, NIH. NIH has this huge UMLS knowledge graph that has everything you want to know about, like symptoms of a disease or diagnosis or codes, or mm, it's also in the graph, which is much stronger than just a tabular knowledge base.
mm,
And so you have all these sources, like you have a source of knowledge out there. You have a lot of data coming, for example, from platforms like Centralive or any other platforms that collect wearable or portable data that are, or even your EHR, right?
mm,
Electronic health records that you have. So there's, in other words, there's external data out there about you. There's external knowledge out there, also curated by experts over centuries, if not millennia. And there's also validated models out there. For example, already there's a very accurate or highly accurate arrhythmia detection deep learning model, which is not generative AI based, it's a traditional deep learning, but highly robust. I mean, many of these models have been even FDA approved. So the idea is, again, uh, not reinventing the wheel, and this time I would say an inefficient, not reinventing the wheel, and in this time I would say an inefficient wheel, because I've noticed that many folks, they just uh, use they want to use LLMs to build even solutions for very small problem, which can be
mm,
done easily with the traditional machine learning algorithm. You really don't need it. In other words, LLMs are super overkill for it, right? So the idea was,
mm.
okay, let's build an agent that can communicate with all these different external sources and can also plan and reason, and that's what agents do, right? Even 30 years old agents are supposed to do reasoning, but in a different way. In the LLM era, they use the LLM for their source of reasoning as well. So you have usually at least two LLMs, one for maybe conversations and all those things, and the other one is more like the orchestrator LLM understands, okay, in order to answer this question, I need to take these sequence of actions. First, I need to
Mm,
go and bring the data from Centralive. Then I need to go and bring the other model from this repository, put the Centralive data or feed the Centralive data to this model, and maybe I'll get the results. If I'm unsure, I can maybe now go and fetch and double check it or triangulate it from a source of knowledge to really make sure X really causes Y, or to make sure drug A has no conflict with drug B, the knowledge base
mm,
out. So we need a standardized general purpose, or not general purpose, like healthcare chatbot that kind of can bring all of these angles under one pitch. And that's when we started openCHA as an open source initiative. It is still an open source initiative. Of course, we have in the company our own also kind of proprietary version that we use, and we kind of tailor it for different
mm.
workflows and settings. But the generic, again, going back to the Lego, right? All those things are already open source, and we're closely also working with organizations like ISO, International Standardization Organization, and also like IEEE and even HL7. We ran workshops with them twice last year to see how we can also standardize this architecture. Uh, those workshops were recorded, publicly available on YouTube, and you're welcome mm, to also check them out.
Yeah, we'll have to link those in the comments below. But is it a fair to say then there are LLMs between Centralive and openCHA that do the conversation orchestration?
Yeah,
Like, is that yeah?
it,
Okay.
and bunch of other things, and you can plug your own source of knowledge. For example, let me give you a scenario. We were working with a hospital, and they had a lot of educational materials that were usually giving to the patients either through papers or customer support or all these other or videos. Uh, and patients get overwhelmed with that huge amount of information, and they don't know from where to start, and they fully usually ignore. Right.
Hmm.
For example, this hospital came to us and they said they gave all these documentations, in different formats, video, PDFs, blah blah. I said, can you connect these to the agent so that when our clients they're searching for something, rather than ChatGPT giving an answer for them which we don't approve, they actually get a real reliable answer from our sources. They have their own source of knowledge, right?
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's also
and it
the beauty.
worked. It did
Yeah,
give the answers. Yeah. Wow.
absolutely. Because now you kind of put in guardrails. So that, or you just limit the search. At least if you want to search, don't just Google everything. Maybe you can just maybe search in the PubMed, which is the biggest source of
Right.
literature for healthcare. So you can at least limit that. So external sources, Mayo Clinic has a nice also kind of source of knowledge that you can just go there and do symptom checking and so on. So why can't we just connect those two things, that those places that we really rely on?
Yeah, that is fascinating. I mean, I was about to ask you for a real life example, and you just painted it right there. I mean, that's I think those use cases will become more prevalent, as time goes on, as these agents like your guys get stronger. Like, there's going to be a need for that. Like you said, so that patients just don't rely on ChatGPT for getting an answer for something. They hear it from where their physician works, or
Exactly.
if you're in a study too, same thing, right? Like, you're able to ask the um, the institution that backs that study, very,
And
very
everyone keeps
fascinating.
complaining. Yeah, sorry, I'm saying everyone keeps complaining that LMs hallucinate and so on. And my answer is that definitely, of course, they're generative models. If you don't uh, put enough guardrails, if you don't restrict their search space or their source of knowledge, they're going to hallucinate. So the idea is not just rely on LLMs. The idea is to build a shell around it, which is the agent,
Hmm.
and even guardrails before and after the LLM. Like the agent can now for example, have a step before even sending the data to the LLM can do some digging. Is it safe question? Even if it's, I want to even answer this question. Maybe this is a question that I don't even want to send it to the LLM. The answer is, or it's unsafe, for example. Or you can even have guardrails after the results come out, right? Again, triangulating with the source of knowledge, with all. So if you build all these things around them, still using AI, notions like constitutional AI and so on, you can make sure that, at least to some extent, that they are kind of, there are guardrails around it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the power of a closed loop platform, LLMs, and conversational health agents is what I'm hearing in a nutshell. Like the
Exactly.
three, when done together correctly, the sky's the limit on what you could do. Now, looking ahead, like what type of partners or opportunities are you looking for, either for Centralive or openCHA?
Yeah. For Centralive, I would say currently like research groups, like health systems, like digital therapeutics companies, or even startups building new solutions or interventions that require like real world data collection. They require, adaptive workflows or even rapid prototyping. That would be
Mm,
ideal for Centralive. For openCHA, RPM companies, remote patient monitoring companies who want to automate their workflow and also provide actionable insights. Telehealth groups, even pharma teams running, digital arms of trials. They're all uh, of interest. Even if these days there are a lot of also academic labs exploring patient like engagement or conversational interfaces. We're happy to work with them. And yeah, so that's, as I said, the idea is really kind of find partners who want to validate new, for example, sensing modalities, AI-based interventions, or scalable, decentralized trial workflows. Yeah,
yeah, I mean it's a wide set of segments there that Centralive and openCHA can cater to, which is quite interesting. And I know RPM is one. Sounds like that's a you've spoken to me on about that one before. That's one that's a very interesting space, I think, for um, conversational agents like openCHA, is because of how time based that is. Like, there's a lot of government programs, and that um, provide reimbursement to providers, but it's all time based, like how much time the RN or the health navigator spends with the patient. So the more you can find ways to get an agent to accelerate that, to get them on the call, or make that time more efficient, I think the better. So you'll find, I think, more pockets of this, because
absolutely,
RPMs and programs like that and CCM aren't going away. I think the government is still pushing those
absolutely,
hard, and expanding reimbursement for them. So
absolutely. And
yeah.
another, in addition to what you mentioned, which is very important, is another problem, which is scalability, right? Of course, you want efficiency, and efficiency in order to also be more scalable. If you have the resources in place, rather than serving maybe 1,000 patients, why can't you just serve 1,000 patients? Uh, you
Mm,
know, sorry, 100,000 patients if you're. So the idea is how you can go 100x or even orders of magnitudes by bringing a lot of, for example, agentic AI to help you really kind of intervene when you really need to intervene, right? So that's, I see that as a uh, making our nurses and future work flow like super humans.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a fair point, because I think in healthcare there's always a sense of like the sensible use of AI. Like, wait, is this going to replace my job or these agents? And it's like, no, like you said, it's more on the scalability side. It makes your work more efficient,
yeah,
and like you're able to scale your the amount of time you have to cover your patients, or in a study, like your pool of participants. So
in other words,
uh,
helping you help more people.
yeah, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
That's great. And so, for anyone who's listening and is interested by this and wants to learn more about your work with Centralive and openCHA, like what's the best way to get in touch, or either try out either of those products or platforms? Like, is it reaching out through your website, your LinkedIn? Tell us more about how someone can get in touch and start to learn more.
Yeah, there are of course multiple ways. Following us on LinkedIn would be one option. We also post a lot of educational materials because as a professor, I always love teaching and giving out. So we have a LinkedIn page, Centralive, and also our website for Centralive is called centralive.health. If you submit a request for demo, most likely you're gonna meet with me 90%. So that's because I really like to go there myself, listen to the problems and pain points, and learn. That's why
Mm,
even I personally give demos these days because I like to understand. Of course, as long as time allows, because I also have my professor. I'm on
right.
sabbatical in these 2 months, so I have more time to
Okay.
spend and learn. So that's one source. For the openCHA, I strongly encourage folks to look at the website of the open source initiative, which is openCHA.com. That is not just for our company, that's a public kind of community kind of driven website. The GitHub repository is there, all the videos, demos, recordings of our workshops are on the openCHA.com. But if you want to, let's say, then talk about it for, let's say you learn about it, but you want to work with us or to us to help you build or customize it for your needs. mm, Again, we have a contact info, but you can just directly email me or go to our company's website, integrated AI system, which is IISys or IISY dot com, and also submit or even either email us or submit a request for them.
Right on. All right. Well, Amir, it was a pleasure speaking to you. We'll make sure to link some of those in the comments so folks can check out your websites and get in contact. And it's always great to hear when an academic like yourself is open to providing the demos, like the founder of the company. You don't get that a lot. So for those listening, reach out when you can, when you still have Amir's time to hear from the horse's mouth. So appreciate you making the time today. I will definitely be keeping tabs on your journey, and looking forward to staying in touch and seeing both openCHA and Centralive grow from here.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And of course, would love to stay in touch with whoever wants to know more about the developments in the field
Yeah,
of health technology.
absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you.